Morning. I'd like to call the April 9th Kankakee County Full Board meeting to order. Today's invocation is from Jackie Haas.
Lord, pray that we begin today in effort and cooperation, be done with your inspiration, continued with your help, and be completed with your guidance. Heavenly Father, guide us in your efforts. Help us to persevere with faith, courage, and sincerity. Help us to be today what you created us to be. Help us to be prepared to search for what is true and right. Help us to be secure in your love so that we might serve our fellow citizens well this day. In your name we pray.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I could, sir. Could I get a roll call?
Absolutely. Mr. Washington.
Present.
Mr. Lajas.
Present.
Mr. Olthoff.
Present.
Mr. Hess.
Present.
Mr. Tholen. Mrs. Polk.
Present.
Mr. Snipes.
Present.
Mr. Byrne.
Present.
Mr. Seroy.
Present.
Mr. Lear.
Present.
Mrs. Weber.
Present.
Mrs. Peters.
Present.
Mr. Payton.
Present.
Mrs. Parker.
Present.
Ms. Dunbar.
Present.
Mr. Ritter.
Present.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Present.
Mr. Fairfield.
Present.
Mr. Zenz. Ms. Haas.
Present.
Mr. Carrico. Mr. Eckhoff.
Present.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Swanson.
Present.
Ms. Zakulo.
Present.
Mr. Featherling.
Present.
Mr. Donnell.
Present.
Mr. Wheeler.
Present. We have quorum. Under public commentary, I have Stacy Wilkin from the Kankakee County Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. My name is Stacy Wilkin. Like the Chairman said, I've been here a few times, so I don't think I need to reintroduce myself again officially, but I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to serve as the Destination Marketing Organization for Kankakee County. Our organization has been doing it since 1983, so we're celebrating our 36th anniversary this year. Really grateful for the opportunities to work with all of our community partners, to continue to work with our community partners. We are halfway on the trek to renewing the agreement with the 6 participants in the intergovernmental agreement we've passed with the City of Kankakee, City of Momence, and the Village of Manteno. We had a good discussion with Bradley last night, and we'll be having further discussions later in the week. But for today, I just would ask that you would continue to support us and work on our behalf. Thank you. Any questions, I suppose?
Not
okay.
At this point, sorry.
Okay.
Second is Lynn Boss from Bourbonnais.
Hi, I'm Lynn Boss, representing Connect Kankakee, and I'm just here to speak to you all on the topic of the way our county's been making money off of detaining immigrants as one of the ways we've been making money. And the feedback we've had from you guys has been, well, whether or not we agree on values, we may or may not, but economics, like we need this economic piece in place, we need to make money as a county. And so I just wanted to speak to the new growth that's coming into our county. I've heard it announced that Nucor Steel and CSL Bearing are both bringing in a lot of new jobs, thousands of new jobs coming up fairly quickly. So that's an exciting time for our county with lots of potential new revenue. And I just wanted to speak to the fact that, one, we would love our county to be a welcoming community for all people. And not be a county that is detaining people as a way of making money. And two, the new revenue coming in will offer a lot of creative opportunities for new growth, new economic opportunities overall. Every dollar earned in our county, there's many more dollars spent. And we can look at all people as potential workers, and there's a lot more money to be made off of a workforce than there is in detaining people. It's like a boxed in revenue instead of this open-ended way of making more and more money. There's also the concept of we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, because what if that basket goes away? There's a Dwight potential new prison for immigrants coming up. So there's the potential that that could take that revenue from us. There's also the potential that if there's a regime change in 2020, you know, there could be a whole new philosophy on whether or not it's good to make money off of detaining immigrants. So just on the positive note, there is new opportunity for us in our county with a lot of potential new revenue. It's a great time to be starting to think outside the box and get creative, and maybe our economics can match our values. So I'm hopeful about that. I just wanted to speak to that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, under communications, I have some information from our state's attorney's office.
Man, good.
You're good.
Good morning, everybody. The chairman asked me to go over real quick the best practices for abstaining from a vote that's before you to consider. Your county code, so the rules of the House, so to speak, prohibits a county board member from abstaining from a vote unless directly interested or excused by the county board. So what that would mean is if you do have a direct interest or a reason to abstain, get a hold of Andy or whoever's sitting in the chair's position before the vote's actually taken. It confuses the issue a little bit if it's during the vote itself, and that obviously makes life a little harder if we have to go back and fix that or deal with it through our office. So with that, I will take any questions. It's relatively straightforward. It's just a matter of reminding the board of their own procedures.
Mr. Olthoff.
Chairman, does the vote present go with the majority?
A vote present doesn't, it's the same thing I understand as an abstention. So just
So it doesn't go.
so
with
it doesn't go with the majority
Okay.
or the minority on that one.
Okay,
I
thank you.
don't believe.
I thought
Right,
it
and,
did.
and I need to make sure of this because actually it was just the opposite. State's attorney's office reached out to me after some abstentions last month. And so we needed the clarification here for the board on what those rules are, because we were always told you have to vote. And so we,
Which
you know,
is what
you-
I'm saying today,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah, you have to vote unless you have a direct conflict, and those direct conflicts has to be voiced to the chair before the meeting. It's really tough when we go into the vote and then you say I abstain, because then we have to stop. You have to explain your conflict, and then all of a sudden, if it's not a conflict, like if it's, you know, I'm friends with my, you know, the guy's cousin's landowner or whoever, do you have a direct interest in that? Then the board would actually have to vote if they see that as a conflict.
But
It's a mess.
You don't have a right to not take a position
Correct.
Right.
unless,
And that's in the
Unless you
county's
have a
ordinances.
direct-
So
A direct
that's the
conflict.
rules of the House, so to speak.
Yeah.
It just makes life a little difficult from a record perspective, and we want to try and clean that up as best we can.
Consistency is kind of what we're talking
Right,
about.
right.
You know? So that's it. It's not a woodshed type thing. You know, it's more like this. We kind of have to do things the right way. So, anyway, and no other questions on that? Okay. Under presentations, I have a proclamation declaring April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. If we could read that into the record, please, Mr. Anderson.
Proclamation of the Kankakee County Board declaring April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is a community problem that depends on involvement among people throughout the community. Whereas we all have a responsibility as individuals, neighbors, community members, and citizens of the County of Kankakee. And whereas safe and healthy childhoods produce confident and successful adults. And whereas child abuse and neglect often occurs when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and don't know how to cope. And whereas the majority of child abuse cases stem from situations and conditions that are preventable in an engaged and supportive community. And whereas child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure each family has the support they need in raising their children in a safe, nurturing environment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among social service agencies, schools, faith communities, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Now therefore, I, Andrew H. Wheeler, by virtue of the authority vested in me as County Board Chairman of Kankakee County, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention Month and call upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live.
So is there a motion to approve the proclamation? Mr. Ackoff, second. Mr. Washington. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on, no vacancy to appointments today. Certificates of recognition, Dora Calderon from the Probation Department. Is Dora here? All right. Thank you for your service, 15 years. Minutes of the last meeting for March 12th, 2019. I need a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Burns, second. Mr. Payton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under Claims Committee, report.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your Committee on County Claims would beg leave to report they have examined the following claims presented and recommend payment. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to issue orders to the several claimants payable out of the funds as follows. Highway Fund, $308,215.81. All other funds, $115,651.45, for a total for the month of February 2019 of $423,867.26. For the general fund, $1,127,591.48. All other funds, $3,877,607.56, for a total for the month of February 2019 of $5,005,199.04.
Alrighty. We have, I guess we need a motion to approve on the Claims Committee report. Mr. Lear, a second, Mr. Byrne. Any questions about that? Mr. Snipes?
One, are these claims filed with the auditor's office by the 25th of the month?
Every single claim?
I don't know, since we're dealing with county code, section 280 of our county ordinance says all claims submitted to the county board for approval shall be certified by the officer or person who made the purchase or incurred the liability and sworn by the claimant, and must be on file in the office of the county auditor by the 25th of the month. If any claim presented to the county board is adjusted by way of compromise with the claimant by the committee auditing the claim, the committee shall report fully to the board the terms and the compromise, and the same should be entered by the record. That's our rules. So that's why.
Do you have any evidence that they're not?
I believe that's why I asked the question. I said, are they?
How would I know that every single claim has gone through that process? They should be. But did you?
Okay, that's what I'm just asking.
Did you think to ask me that question before today?
Well, when I
finance committee meeting. No, I'm serious. What's the point of this?
The point is, I pulled the county ordinance and started reading it, and as I'm reading it,
Just this morning.
Just like I knew that when the attorney made the thing that you have to make a vote, it's in here. So I pulled the county ordinance.
I'd be happy if you would like to email the auditor and ask him. That'd be fine. I would appreciate that. We all like to know. Inquiring minds.
Well, it's our ordinance, so that's why I'm asking. Are we following those rules?
You can vote no against these claims if you feel that something is not.
This is only a question. It should not be taken as an offense. I'm just asking.
You had a month to ask that question before today.
No,
it's a grandstanding
it's when I
effort.
pulled it, or wherever I start looking, and then I start seeing.
Alrighty. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Legess. Aye. Mr. Olthoff.
Aye.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Tholen.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
No.
Mr. Byrne.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Ms. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Ms. Zakulo.
Aye.
Mr. Featherland.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under department reports, if we could read those into the record, please. Thank you, Dan.
The County Collector's Monthly Report for February 2018. Total cash in bank and investments, $717,265.37. County Treasurer's Monthly Report for February 2019. Total cash and investments, $717,265.37. Finance Department for February 2019. Total checking accounts and cash, $12,669,678.67. General fund deficit balance of $2,915,302.18. Coroner's monthly report for February 2019. Total calls 92, coroner's cases 8, autopsies 4, toxicology 5, cremation 62, 1 incomplete, and total fees $13,121.97. Circuit clerk cash book for February 2019, total dispersed $388,158.06. Recorder's monthly report for February 2019, disbursement fees paid to the county treasurer of $90,030. County clerk's monthly report for February 2019, total fees of $31,673.64. Animal control monthly report for February 2019, total fees $25,588. In the IPTIP building fund, $293.49. Total animals handled 62. The building division report for February 2019, total permits 25, fees of $4,395, total extra fees of $1,060 for a total of $5,455. The monthly resolution list for April 2019, total to the county $36,806.04. And the regional superintendent's quarterly report for the quarter ending February 2019 is on file.
Can I get a motion to combine and accept the reports as presented? Ms. Parker, second, Mr. Legess. All those in favor, please? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to committee presentations, resolutions, the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda? That should take a second to look it over. Second time, anything that needs to be removed? Alrighty then, I guess I would need a motion to accept the consent agenda. Mr. Olthoff, a second. Ms. Haas, if we could please read those into the record.
The resignation of Kendall Wenzelman as the ethics advisor. The resignation of Ed Mentz from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The appointment of Kendall Wenzelman to the Ethics Commission. The appointment of Dawn Landwehr to the Historic Preservation Commission. The reappointment of Joseph Kane to the Kankakee County Board of Review. The reappointment of Mark Kaner to the Kankakee County Board of Review. The reappointment of Gerald Benge to the Mantino Community Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Tony Brunello to the Grant Park Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Robert Casino to the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Brian Grob to the Pilot Township Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Ralph Mercier to the St. Anne Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Stephen D. Schultz to the Limestone Township Fire Protection District. The reappointment of Dennis Sherwood to the Greater Momence Fire Protection District. The reappointment of William Serpanaugh to the Otto Township Fire Protection District. The amendment to Section 2-229 of the Kankakee County Code's Ethic Ordinance. Authorizing the County Board Chairman to sign a third extension to the intergovernmental agreement for funding the Kankakee County Convention and Visitors Bureau. ZBA case 19-02, special use permit 121-99.c.14 slaughterhouse, and a variant section 121-99.c.14.c lot width in the A1 Agriculture District, sections 28 Pilot Township.
Thank you. I just realized something. I need to ask Mr. Quinn a question and put you on the spot. Since this hotel motel tax is a pass-through, do we need to vote on that separately?
That too. Yeah, you probably should remove it.
Okay.
Just to be on the safe side, because you are spending money.
It's, even though it's just pass-through.
It's a pass-through, but it still is the county's power to tax.
So we're gonna remove 67 and vote on that separately, just to make sure we do our business correctly. So beyond that, any other, there's a motion in the second, agree with that removal, I guess, probably should say, okay, thank you. Explain it? Okay. All right, so yeah, we'll remove it, we'll do 67 next. Okay, we have a motion and a second. That's a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Legess.
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff.
Aye.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Tholen.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Byrne. Aye. Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Ms. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Ms. Akulo.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. If we could move on to 67, please, and just read the title into the record. Please and thank you.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing the county board chairman to sign a third extension to the intergovernmental agreement for funding the Kankakee County Convention and Visitors Bureau.
All right, so by way of explanation, as it says, it's the third extension. This was the one where the CVB was asking if the communities originally would allow for IMRF to fund the pension of their employees. And we sent, you know, everybody knows I had an issue with that. They weren't part of a public entity, and, you know, we talked about that. So with the state's attorney's office, we sent an opinion, or asked for an opinion from the Attorney General. One has not been forthcoming. So we've been extending this whole time the agreement so it doesn't expire. And the hotel motel tax is all the hotels in the county feed into this fund, which funds the CVB and all their activities to promote the county outside of the region. And so this allows them to still operate in this consortium, if you will, to pool all of that money and to spend it outside of this area. Predominantly, obviously, they've got to have a place to be and things like that, you know, to house their operations. But it just allows it to keep going until, you know, and it's the same terms. It's just an extension of what currently existed, well, probably for 8-9 years now. I would
Something like that, yeah.
It's been in effect for that long. So really, nothing has changed. We did up the percentage. Some may remember before the Bears renewed, there's a possibility they weren't going to renew. And so the CVB did fund some things around the Bears camp that the Bears required or asked of the community. And that's kind of the purpose of them, as tourism, heads and beds, highlight our events in the area. So to start where they were, which is really kind of, I hate to say it, almost dysfunctional. They weren't really operating well as a unit, to where they are today is a true shift into a professional organization. Even though I disagree on the IMRF thing, the operations are running really well. I am the representative from this board, and I can report that back to you, that they're doing what they should be doing. So now, questions? Just
Motion first.
Motion first. Mr. Eckhoff, second. Ms. Dunbar, is there really any questions about the agreement? Any misgivings? Okay. Well, we better do a roll call then, shouldn't we?
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Legess. Aye. Mr. Olthoff.
Aye.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mr. Tholen.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Byrne.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Ms. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson. Ms. Akulo.
Aye.
Mr. Featherly.
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to PZA, if we could read that title into the record, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, regarding awarding the bid to the lowest responsible bidder, Patrick N. Ryan, to demo structures at 13 River Lane, Kankakee.
Motion to approve, to start with Mr. Olthoff, second, Mrs. Peters. Any questions about this? It's been kind of in the wings, waiting until we got everything in order with this. This is one where FEMA was going to give us the money to tear the structure down because it kept flooding out repetitively. This is the one, I believe, this is the mouth of Baker's Creek property,
Yeah.
I believe. And so it'll just be tore down and made like a, you can't build structures there. Neighborhood could use it, whatever. We own it. We have to take care of it. You know, trees fall and all that kind of stuff, but that's really our only horse in the race, so to speak. I'll start with Mr. Legess and then Mr. Lear, please.
Did we have more than one bid?
Yes.
I think there was,
Yes,
four.
there's four
Yeah,
in front
this was
of,
the
front of me
lowest.
here. I think
Yeah.
Dell's got a presentation if you want to
Do
go
all
into
four,
that. But
when we do the minutes, do all four bids go in there? I think it'd be wise that we list all the bids, that way it's in the minutes and then they can see what the bids were
Yeah,
and what the lowest bid was.
did that get done at PZA? Do we know?
yeah, we did it at PZA.
If it did get done at PZA, we don't need to, but I'm happy to do it
in the
for
resolution.
county
Well, I
board's
think it
purpose.
should be done at the full board meeting.
I'm happy to do it.
Put it in the packet, you mean, so people can see
It's
it?
in here.
No,
Okay.
for Dan to read the bids and what they were.
Oh, I see,
And then the public knows who bid and what they bid and the
Okay.
low bidder. You know, it takes away
Could you read the bids, Dan?
Sure.
Got a hostile crowd today.
The summary of the bids are as follows. Ford Excavating and Wrecking Company Incorporated, $24,430. Oakwood Enterprises Incorporated, $37,875. Patrick N. Ryan Incorporated, $24,000. Scanlon Excavating and Concrete, $27,500.
The one that I guess to be aware though, because like I'm looking at Mark Rogers right now and his eyebrows are up because he gets lots of bids on lots of stuff. And so do we want to do this for everything? You see my point, I hope, because we could sit here and read the highway ones for an hour, especially when they do their auction. And I'm not putting you on the spot, but I mean, I want to be aware of what you guys want to see. You know?
I don't know if that's necessary because that's everyday stuff, but something
a little bit different.
Something that's out of the ordinary
That makes sense. Okay.
And just as a point of procedure, like a couple county board members have identified, it's in the resolution too, so the public can go back and see what was bid and when and all that. So
I'm just getting a little crankier the older I get.
yeah, that's,
Amen.
All talk? Yeah.
Continues. Yes, sorry, Mr. Lear. I'm sorry, I got swept
Thank
away.
you, Mr. Chairman. If I recall correctly, I'm not currently on PZA, but from the past, does this money flow through the state? And we were using this kind of as a test to ensure that the money would flow properly, and there would be similar activity in the future, probably, if it flows properly.
Well, yes, for the most part. The other one we were worried about, there was like 5 houses.
Right.
And we didn't want to do all 5 because at the time we'd already been, stiffed isn't the right word. Yeah, stiffed is the right word, on a grant for the courthouse where we spent the money and then the money didn't come when they changed the governor's office. So we didn't want the same thing to happen, but, and Dell might be able to speak to that, but this is federal money that's passed through the state.
it's a slightly different
It's a little bit
grant
different.
It's a little different.
source for this
Thank you,
one than
Mr.
the other
Johnson.
one you're referring to.
Now, this is an HMGP grant, which is from the federal government. It passes through the state. The other one you're talking about is from, is this on?
Yeah.
Is from IDNR. So that is strictly state money for the other 5 houses.
Okay.
And that's the one where there was concern about
Yeah.
we'd have to put the money up front and then they'd reimburse us on the back end.
And this is up front as well, correct?
We have to spend the money before, it's reimbursement.
Right,
yes.
and so the IDNR one is somewhat, we're thinking maybe take a couple of houses, do those.
Right.
And then make sure we get the money back and then do a couple more.
No, that's the committee.
And they're all grouped together. It'll be a nice park for that area of the river when it's done, you know. It's better than a house with a tree through the roof that's been sitting there three years, but, so, any other comments on that, Dell, for the committee? Or is
No,
that-
unless there's questions.
Any other questions for Dell? It's been a long process.
Yes.
We finally went through the closing, so, we have a motion and a second. All right, that'll be a roll call vote then.
Mr. Washington. Aye. Mr. Legess.
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff. Aye. Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Tholen.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Byrne.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Ms. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Ms. Zakulo.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to finance, just if we could read the title of that resolution, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing the County Board Chairman and Sheriff to execute a renewal contract with the United States Marshal Service.
Sorry about that. I had a question. So yeah, we need a motion to approve. I guess Mr. Olthoff, second. Somebody, Mr. Hess in the back. Sorry. Any questions about this? We went through it on finance. Want to make sure everybody knows it's a new rate agreement. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Legess.
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff.
Aye.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Tholen. Mrs. Pope. Mr. Snipes. Mr. Byrne. Mr. Seroy. Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber. Mrs. Peters. Mr. Payton. Mrs. Parker. Ms. Dunbar. Mr. Ritter. Mr. Kinzinger. Mr. Fairfield. Ms. Haas. Mr. Eckhoff. Mr. Swanson. Ms. Zakulo. Mr. Featherling. Mr. Dunhill. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under highways and buildings, the concurring resolution, I would need a motion to approve the claims made on that report. Mr. Washington, second, Mrs. Zakulo. Actually, a motion to waive the reading and then accept the concurring resolution. That noted, is that okay? All right. Any questions about that from highway? What? Yeah. All right, roll call vote, please. Yeah, that was one we just did before.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Lejess.
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff. Mr. Hess. Mr. Tholen. Mrs. Pope. Mr. Snipes. Mr. Byrne. Mr. Seroy. Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber. Mrs. Peters. Mr. Payton. Mrs. Parker. Ms. Dunbar. Mr. Ritter. Mr. Kinzinger. Mr. Fairfield. Ms. Haas. Mr. Eckhoff. Mr. Swanson. Ms. Zakulo. Mr. Featherling. Mr. Dunhill. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under old business, I have openings, one on the BM Lewis Drainage District, one on the Grinnell Special Drainage District, one on Gar Creek Drainage, two on Mantino number 3 drainage, one on Mantino number 9 drainage, one opening on Minnie Creek Drainage, Moments and Yellowhead Drainage, one resident opening of the Kankakee County Housing Authority Board, one opening on the U of I Extension Committee for a county board member, one opening on the ZBA, and one opening on the Kankakee Fire Protection District. Is there any new business to start with? I had a couple on the, actually, let me finish up some old business here first. The first thing, so those on the community services may remember we had sent something to the state's attorney about the swap meet, and the opinion came back, and Graham could opine eloquently on that if he chooses to. But basically, we have no jurisdiction to regulate anything outside of dogs and cats in the county. It's disappointing to some people, but it was one of those things where we had that suspicion, but we want AWAC to be the Animal Welfare Committee, to be a functioning committee to bring things to community services, their needs, wants, and desires as far as the animal community, and not to stifle that. So we went through the process. It didn't work out in their favor, but the process works, and we'll continue to go down that path. But I just want to announce it to everybody that it's not something we can regulate. It's all Department of Agriculture on animals outside of companion animals, and I guess, and you don't consider a horse a companion animal.
I want to tighten that up a little bit. We do have jurisdiction to do some things with horses, some things with pets, but in terms of banning the sale of these animals, we don't have that authority. That's the Department of Ag, by extension, the state's responsibility if they want to go down that road. I share the concerns of the AWAC group. I understand that there's a problem out there we want to try and address, but I also don't want us to get into a liability issue from a legal perspective by regulating something we can't.
Sure.
So.
Any questions, Ms. Parker, on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the state's attorney's office sending us the findings and opinions of that, and hopefully the swap meet will abide by the welfare of the animals that they're supposed to. I did understand the first opening that there were some issues out there, but it looked pretty good. And so we're hoping that they continue with taking care of the animals. And we do want to thank, on behalf of AWAC, for going over that ordinance and letting us know the results.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. The last other thing under old business, if everybody were to look at your claims committee report, every month they're from, in this case, from 2/1 until 2/28. So that answers a previous question that was posed to this committee. All claims are processed through 2/28. Okay? Any questions about that? Because it's in the packet and everybody has access to the same information every single month. And it's emailed to you if this looks familiar. This rather substantive document that comes each and every month from the auditor's office. Any new business? Mr. Olthoff? No, I think Mr. Snipes has new business.
Right. I want to bring to your attention that a lot of times we tend to be laxed when we look at things, but what brought my attention was the fact that we, from time to time, have voted on some issues, and when we looked at those issues, it appears as if we're voting against more so ourselves, because this stuff tends to be in our ordinance, and as guilty, I don't look at all of it. I just take for granted that every committee does what it does, and whatever comes to this board comes to this board. However, there are a couple of issues that I think that we need to address, however, which means we need to revisit this, our county ordinance. The first one is section 274. It says, in all cases when a resolution or motion shall be entered in the county board's minutes, the clerk shall also enter the name of the moving member. Means the person that moves the motion or the resolution. Never saw that, but again, it's in our code that we put together. The second one is the privilege of the floor. It says no county board member shall have the privilege of the floor until he shall rise, and we need to start making that, one, gender friendly. Two, what happens when we have an issue of ADA and the person cannot rise? So according to our 267, it says no county board member shall have the privilege of the floor until he shall rise and respectfully address the chair and recognize, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm saying, as a board, because we're the ones that put these ordinances into place, we need to revisit it to make sure, one, that it's gender friendly, two, that it complies with the ADA, and three, that when we look at this, it's not something that's outdated or something that we will, when we vote against something or for something, that is not against whatever it is we've already got into these county ordinances or whatever. So when I pulled them after hearing that debate from last month, I just started looking at what we had. So I simply read it today. Wasn't to be confrontational, it was just to basically let you know it's there, we put it there, and unless we change it, it's still there. So we need to take a look at this starting next month. Someone, I don't care if it's a committee or send it to our state's attorney, to make sure that it's gender friendly, that it complies with the ADA, and that we do some updating if need be. That's just my concern.
So, Mr. Snipes, our office represents every member of the county board in terms of their position here. If you have suggestions that you'd like to propose, send it to our office. We'll happily take a look at it.
Well, this one has to go from the whole county because it's an ordinance, so I want to bring it to their attention first.
I would recommend sending it to our office. We'll take a look at it, and if it's appropriate to change whatever we need to change, we can bring it through the normal process. But I can't speak for the ones you're citing today. I don't have it in front of me, right? But happy to work with you in terms of anything you'd like to change and propose to the full board.
Well, I agree. I mean, I appreciate that, but the issue has to be brought before the board because this is where I'm a member of, and so as a result, I have to address it.
I don't disagree
with them. So when I come to you, it's like they saying you went behind. It's a board issue.
You're absolutely right. It's a board issue. I'm just saying there are other considerations that maybe you aren't thinking of, and we're happy to consult on that.
Oh, okay. That's no problem.
You just need to send us what you want to change and why, and kind of what your thought process is, and we'll work with you. And if it's appropriate, if it's something we're capable of doing, we'll make that recommendation. We can go through the normal process, same as any other ordinance, right? But just to say we want to change something, I have some reservations with that without taking a harder look at it.
Right. If you notice, the words were just to look at it, to review it, to update it from things that may be gender friendly. Those are just generic terms that makes me say, let's do some housekeeping of this particular ordinance or whatever, and that's basically just looking at the county board because these are the rules that we make. And then we will more than glad send them over because you're gonna look at it from the whole, but it's now to bring it to their attention because when I pulled the county ordinance, basically what you all cited today, every member of the county board present at a meeting of the board upon the putting of a question shall vote thereupon unless directly interested or excused by the county board. So, I mean, it's there. So when I looked at it, and I marked that as well. So we need to look again, not at changing everything, but I think it's look at some of the updates. What if a person can't rise? Or the word he, you know, I do know that we use it a lot, but if there's some updates, I'm just saying as a note to the county board, let's look at it, and then we can send it to the state's attorney office for the review. But we need to kind of look at this in whether you're going to be an executive or whatever, but we need to look at the county code to make sure that it's updated. Those are just my comments.
Any other new business? Mr. Legess?
I'd like to make the motion, we adjourn.
Mr. Hess, is that your second? All those in favor? Those opposed? Have a good day.